Imagine entering a secret dark cellar that has remained hidden for hundreds of years. Deep inside this cellar, buried beneath layers of dust and time, there's a vault. No one has seen what's inside until now. Russia has just opened it, and what they've found is shaking up everything we thought we knew. It's a secret they've kept for centuries, locked away from the world, and now it's out in the open for everyone to see. It's a painting of Jesus, but not the Jesus most people imagine. This painting depicts Jesus with dark skin, unlike the light-skinned and soft-haired Jesus we're accustomed to seeing in churches and on TV. That's a black Jesus. This is an ancient icon hidden for so long that people forgot it even existed. But Russian President Vladimir Putin himself decided it was time for the world to know. Centuries ago, people from all over the world painted Jesus with dark skin. They believed this was the true image of him. But then something happened. As Europe and America grew in power, they changed the picture. They made Jesus look white, erasing the original image. Those in power wanted Jesus to look like them, to fit their idea of who was in charge. But now that Russia has revealed this secret, people are starting to question everything. Not only is the image of black Jesus emerging from Russia's ancient vault an artistic choice, but it also reveals a deeper, more nuanced truth about the portrayal of religious figures throughout history. For centuries, many cultures around the world depicted Jesus and other biblical figures with darker skin. In fact, the earliest known depiction of Christ, discovered in Syria around 235 AD, shows Jesus with short, woolly hair and dark skin. This is a far cry from the light-skinned, blue-eyed Jesus that has dominated Western art and culture for so long. But how did we get from those early depictions of a dark-skinned Jesus to the white European version we're more familiar with today? Religious art for hundreds of years reflected the culture and ethnicity of the regions where it originated. Early Christian history, particularly in the Middle East, North Africa, and parts of Europe, often depicted Jesus as possessing ethnic characteristics akin to the local populations, such as dark skin and curly hair. At the time, people embraced these images as a true reflection of religious belief. But by the time we reached the late Middle Ages and into the Renaissance period around the 14th century, things started to change. In Europe especially, as powerful nations like Spain, France, and England rose in influence, they also began to spread their versions of Christianity across the globe. Along with this came a disturbing twist: white supremacy. Colonization wasn't just about conquering lands, it was also about controlling ideas, and this included religious images. As Europe colonized vast parts of Africa, the Americas, and Asia, the image of Jesus began to shift. Europeans, wanting to see themselves reflected in the figure they worshipped, began to depict Jesus as white, with soft, wavy brown hair and light skin. This wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate attempt to align the most important religious figure with the European ideal, reinforcing their dominance over the peoples they colonized. These whitewashed images of Jesus became widespread, cementing in the minds of millions around the world the idea that Jesus was, in fact, European-looking. Putin has now revealed the darker-skinned images, pushing them to the background and hiding them away. The consequences of this change were massive. It wasn't just about art, it was about power and identity. European rulers have used this white image of Jesus for over 400 years to justify and maintain racial hierarchies, especially in colonized countries where they sought to maintain their power over black and indigenous populations. These images were symbols of European superiority, subtly, or sometimes not so subtly, sending the message that whiteness was divine and that anything else was lesser. During this period, people recast blackness in a negative light, associating it with sin, servitude, and inferiority. This is why the revelation of Black Jesus in Russia is so important today. It isn't just a matter of artistic preference. It's about reclaiming a lost history and challenging centuries of whitewashing. Russia's decision to bring these icons into the light is more than just a historical curiosity. It's a chance to rethink the narratives we've been taught about race, religion, and power. And as more people around the world come face to face with these images, the conversation around who Jesus really was and what he represents will continue to grow, igniting discussions that stretch beyond art and into the very fabric of society. This newfound image of Black Jesus challenges the foundations of how many people understand Christianity. It opens up conversations about race, identity, and representation in ways that are deeply relevant in today's world, especially in light of movements like Black Lives Matter. For centuries, powerful European nations like Spain, England, and France didn't just conquer land, they also spread their version of religion wherever they went. This expansion aimed to convert people to Christianity and control the idea of divinity. Part of that control was ensuring that the image of Jesus matched the European ideal: white, with fair skin and soft features. This was no accident. It was part of a much larger system that sought to justify their dominance over other races and cultures. But why did these powerful countries feel the need to change something as important as the image of Jesus? The answer lies in white supremacy, a deeply rooted belief system that claimed the white race was superior to all others. Colonizers needed to solidify their authority not just through weapons and laws, but through symbols that would reinforce their control over conquered peoples. A powerful tool in this process was the alteration of Jesus' image to more closely resemble them. After all, if the savior of humanity looked white, it subtly suggested that white people were closer to God and therefore more legitimate rulers than everyone else. This manipulation of religious imagery became an essential part of the colonization process. When European settlers arrived in Africa, Asia, and the Americas, they didn't just bring armies. They also brought this whitewashed image of Jesus, introducing it into societies that had their own rich cultural and religious traditions. Over time, these white depictions of Jesus began to replace the local images, sending a dangerous message to indigenous populations that whiteness was synonymous with goodness, power, and divinity. For instance, when European colonizers arrived in Africa, they introduced Christianity with images of a white Jesus, pushing aside African spiritual traditions and local depictions of religious figures. It was part of their mission to control the land and change how colonized people saw the world and themselves. The portrayal of the highest figure of holiness as white reinforced the notion of whiteness superiority, leading to the perception of Africans and other people of color as inferior not only politically and socially, but also spiritually. In countries colonized by Europeans, this deliberate use of religious imagery had devastating consequences. Not only did they convert people to Christianity, but they also convinced them they were naturally submissive to their colonizers. By introducing a white Jesus, colonizers implanted the idea that whiteness was associated with purity, godliness, and authority. This helped to justify the oppression and exploitation of millions of people. Take the Americas, for example, where European colonists brought their version of Christianity to the indigenous people. For these colonists, it wasn't enough to convert the local populations. They had to reshape how indigenous people saw the world, including their spiritual beliefs. The image of a white Jesus became a tool to strip away indigenous cultures and instill the colonizers' worldview. If Jesus was white and Jesus was good, then the colonizers, who also looked like Jesus, must be good too, or so the reasoning went. Perhaps one of the most detrimental effects of this was the perception of blackness in both colonized lands and Europe itself. Over time, the portrayal of black figures in art and literature became associated with negative traits, evil, sin, and servitude. This wasn't just a coincidence, it was part of the deliberate efforts of colonizers to enforce their dominance. They had to establish the perception of whiteness as superior and blackness as inferior. Religious art often depicted darker-skinned people as inferior or even sinful, further ingraining racist ideas into the fabric of colonized societies. As a result, for centuries, entire generations of colonized people grew up seeing these images that subtly reinforced the idea that to be white was to be closer to God, and to be black or non-European was to be farther from holiness. These messages became internalized and helped solidify racial hierarchies that have lasted well into the modern era. Well, the truth is that the rediscovery of these Black Jesus icons isn't just a history lesson, it's a mirror reflecting our world right now. This revelation raises questions that transcend the past. They have a deep connection to the contemporary social issues, ranging from racial inequality to our understanding of identity and power in modern society. In recent years, movements like Black Lives Matter have put racial justice at the forefront of public conversation. People around the world are asking hard questions about how race shapes everything, from politics to culture to everyday life. One of the key ideas driving these movements is the need to challenge long-standing racial narratives, and this is exactly what the unveiling of Black Jesus does. It forces us to confront the fact that many of the stories we've been told, even those central to our religious beliefs, have been shaped by racial bias. Let's consider the significance of this moment. For centuries, people have grown up with the image of white Jesus deeply ingrained in their minds. Not only was this a figure of faith, but it also served as a symbol to uphold racial hierarchies, particularly in colonized countries. Now, with these Russian icons depicting Jesus as black, we have an opportunity to shift that narrative. The culture and politics of the time influence religious imagery, reminding us that it's not unchanging. The rediscovery of these icons challenges us to rethink who controls the images that shape our faith and, by extension, how those images influence our society. It's not just a conversation about art, it's about identity. Seeing a Black Jesus serves as a powerful reminder for millions of people, highlighting the reflection of their race in holiness and divinity. This is particularly significant for Black and marginalized communities who have long struggled with the erasure of their representation in important cultural and religious symbols. The idea that Jesus could look like them and not like the whitewashed images that have dominated religious spaces for centuries is a deeply empowering realization. At the same time, this revelation is stirring up controversy. Not everyone is comfortable with the idea of changing such a central figure in Christianity. For many, the image of Jesus is not merely a painting, but a deeply ingrained part of their beliefs. It can be unsettling to consider that colonizers and racial elites have manipulated this image for centuries. The disruption can be difficult to accept, as it calls into question a fundamental part of their faith. However, these conversations are crucial because they challenge us to confront the legacy of white supremacy that continues to influence our society today. Just as the image of white Jesus justified colonization and the oppression of people of color, racial inequality still permeates many aspects of life today, from economic disparities to policing to cultural representation. The unveiling of these icons, then, isn't just about history, it's a call to action reminding us that we need to confront these issues in the present. We can better understand the ongoing struggle for racial equality by revisiting the use of religious images in the past. This revelation of Black Jesus is more than just a challenge to religious art. It's a reminder that the way we portray figures of power and divinity matters in the fight for justice. It asks us to rethink how representation shapes our understanding of the world and ourselves. Imagine what it means for someone growing up today to see a Black Jesus for the first time. It offers a new perspective on faith, one that includes a broader view of what holiness can look like. It conveys to people of color that these sacred spaces also reflect them. This is a powerful moment, especially when we think about how deeply the lack of representation has affected minority communities for generations. As society continues to grapple with issues of race, identity, and justice, the rediscovery of these icons provides a timely opportunity for reflection and change, not just rewriting the past, but moving forward. This isn't just a religious dispute, it's a part of a broader discussion about defining the most significant narratives we tell ourselves about the world. The unveiling of Black Jesus icons from Russia's hidden vaults has cracked open a door many didn't even know existed. It's not just about religious art, it's about questioning the narratives we've accepted for so long, without really thinking about where they came from or who benefited from them. Western culture has deeply embedded the image of Jesus as a white man for centuries. But the emergence of this ancient icon has forced us to confront some difficult truths. If you find value in what we're discussing today, please click the Super Thanks button below. You're directly helping us continue bringing you more thought-provoking content, exploring hidden truths, and uncovering stories that challenge the way we see the world. More than just a painting, this rediscovered image serves as a symbol of the stories that those in power have erased or rewritten. It prompts us to reevaluate who has the authority to narrate these tales and the reasons behind the suppression of certain voices. These ancient Russian icons depicting Jesus as black remind us of a time when people not only accepted, but embraced the idea of a diverse, multicultural faith. However, at some point in time, this diversity disappeared, resulting in a limited perspective of history. As we reflect on this moment, it's crucial to remember that this isn't just about religion. It's about power, identity, and representation. The portrayal of religious figures like Jesus has always been a reflection of the culture that created it. These Black Jesus icons force us to face uncomfortable questions, but they also offer a chance for change. They encourage us to unearth buried stories and transform our perspectives on faith, race, and history. The revelation of these images will change how many see themselves and their place in the world. For others, it may feel like a challenge to beliefs they've held their entire lives. But that's exactly why this moment is so important. The power of this discovery lies in its ability to make us question what we thought was certain. It challenges us to rethink not just religious art, but the broader systems that have shaped our perceptions of race and divinity. In doing so, it opens up the possibility for a future where these boundaries are not defined by the past, but reshaped by a more inclusive and truthful vision of the world. Thanks for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more to uncover, and we'd love to have you along for the journey. Until the next video.